Reality check time. Are sellers finally getting real with their reserves on Bring a Trailer? We're going to look at the results of the predictions we made about listings on the last episode. We've got all new predictions. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube card game show. Boom! And we are here live for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds, your nerd out on the most interesting cars from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. My name is JP, coming to you from downtown Las Vegas in the Container Park, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. How are you, Michael Deeb?
Amazing, JP. I sold a car today, so I'm feeling really big in my britches. But I am looking longingly at your beard. I kind of shaved mine off today, and as I look at your handsome locks, I kind of feel like Mr. Bigglesworth. So I don't know. Let's get this going so I get this light out of my face.
Let's do it. All right, yeah, grow that beard, Mike. Your beard should be much bigger than mine. We got that chat thing going. All right. Hey, if you are new to Bid Nerds, welcome. We've got a lot of new viewers lately. What do we do on the show? We play kind of like Price is Right, but with cars on BaT, PCAR Market, Cars and Bids, Hagerty Marketplace, and more. Look, the big question tonight that we're going to try to answer, is it finally time for a reality check? Are sellers finally getting reasonable with their reserves? We made some predictions on the last episode. That's what we do. We analyze listings. We predict what we think is going to happen. That is what the results will be for those particular listings. And then on the next episode, we reconcile our predictions with what actually happened. So stick around to the second half of the show. We'll make all new predictions, but let's start with the first car on the list to see if it answers the question. Have sellers finally begun to get real out there on BaT? What's the first car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, as we circle back and check in on the 2022 Ford Bronco Apocalypse Dark Horse 6x6 that is on Cars and Bids. Thank you to Buddha. Mike Myers picked this one for us. A featured listing on Cars and Bids, by the way. Our car is on a clean Texas title out of Hurst, Texas, showing just 5,800 miles. But the big news is all the money spent on modifying this chassis into being something that is nearly unrecognizable to any other Ford Bronco owner out there. I mean, this car, JP, is cartoonishly angled and appointed with the oversized wheels and tires and the stretched wheelbase. And it just goes on and on and on. We never did really get an idea of what the actual modification cost aside from the price of the donor vehicle. But John, you and I and Wade, who was in studio with us, we were all thinking pretty high. We were thinking it's got to be in this thing close to, $150,000. I mean, maybe more. I mean, Broncos themselves aren't cheap. John, I started the bidding at $89,000. I was very bearish on this one. I didn't think he would get to a number that he would accept. So at $89,000, when I gave you my bid, I thought it would be an FTS. John, you took the over but agreed with me at $95,000. And Wade Bennett from Tech Daily returned to the studio. He came home, our son, the prodigal son, returned. He took the over right above you, JP, and gave us a lot of sixes, $96,666. I know we do have Randy B. I don't really see the old bid, so we'll just jump right in here, JP. Here's where it gets interesting, and we can go right to the question that you opened the show with. Our car hammered for $84,000 on 22 bids. That's not a surprise to me. What is a surprise is that it sold for that number. JP, with only 6,000 miles, are we to seriously consider that this guy may have just lost $50,000 to $75,000 or $80,000 in just a year or two, running his car only 6,000 miles and then letting it go for what is probably a 40% loss? I mean, this is bananas to me that let it go. So you asked the question, are sellers getting real? This guy has definitely got a dose of reality because his reserve was either set correctly or pulled during the final minutes of the auction to ensure that this car would go, despite the hammer being what all of us thought was way undervalued for what the investment in this car would justify for a retail number. I feel like the buyer on this is the winner. I think he stole the car just based on if you were to start with a brand new Bronco and go build one, I think you would be in for twice as much as what this guy just paid, taking one with only 5,800 miles on it. I mean, oh boy, JP, that's I it's not that I think these cars are a great value, but I just feel like he got a lot for his money at just $84,000. And clearly the seller was ready to pull the Band-Aid off and move on with the rest of his life. What do you think? How do you read that one?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that, you know, there's always kind of the idea that if you're going to mod your car, you just can't expect to get the money out of it. But somewhere in the last couple of years, things got so ridiculous that people were like, oh, I'm going to buy car X for X amount of money, and I'm going to put Y amount of mods on it. And at some point when I go and sell it, I'm going to get all of that money and then some back. But the fact is, when you spend a bunch of money on modding cars, the way it's always been, except for this weird anomaly in time, it's always been put that money in the vehicle. You're not going to get that money back. The only exception that I can think of is still with air-cooled 911s. If the car needs service, a lot of times the money that you put into, say, an engine rebuild might get you some of that money investment back, or like if you convert a 911 to some kind of crazy hot rod or a Singer. But generally, that's just not the case. It's an outlier, and I think this is really an indication of things returning to normal, and the fact that this seller was wise enough to go ahead and let this go. That had to have been painful, but that is the smart thing to do if you don't still want this truck, because it's only going to get less valuable unless there's an apocalypse, which a lot of people in the news, let's be real, of all the cars you might want to hang on to, maybe this is the one that, you know, in 2, 3, 4 months after November, this might be the only car you want. So I don't know. What do you guys think of the results of this just goofy 6x6 Bronco that actually sold for a reasonable number? Do you think that was reasonable? Do you think that the seller got a reality check? Or do you think the seller is just like, oh my gosh, I need money, and is getting a little too scared? Do you think he overreacted? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And what is the next vehicle to see if we can answer that question? Are sellers having a reality check? Michael Deeb, what's next?
All right, JP. It brings me great joy to revisit this listing. The 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera C2 Coupe that was on Hagerty Marketplace, represented by yours truly. This was my consignment. The seller of this car essentially is a friend of Mental's. He was actually out of town on a big trip with his wife, and Mental had this car in the desert most of last calendar year. So all the Vegas crew is familiar with Mental's 993 that belonged to his good friend here in the Bay Area. So Mental introduced me to his buddy. I understood that he wanted to sell it. I gave him a very light pitch and got the consignment to list this beautiful 58,000 mile 911 6-speed manual, limited slip differential, automatic brake differential, factory short shift, otherwise very stock, you know, stock wheels and suspension and brakes. It's got 2 little mufflers by Pfister, but this is a really clean Grand Prix white with all black leather interior car. JP, you or I or even Mental, any one of us would love to have this car as our air-cooled 911. You could do a lot and have a lot of fun with this. A little livery, you know, some suspension work, some sticky tires, whatever you want to do. What a great starting point. And this car just sounds and drives beautifully. You and I both got to enjoy a few minutes behind the wheel of this car. And what a hell of a listing. So anyways, JP, we listed it, and people we know were bidding on this car. The car did pretty well. I recused myself from bidding, but JP, you and Wade took a stab at it. JP, you opened the bidding at $89,993. And Wade Bennett from Tech Daily joined us in studio for the last show. Wade gave us a bid just over yours, JP, at $92,222. Here's where it gets interesting, JP. Our car hammered for $82,000. And with the buyer's fee, the buyer essentially is paying $87,750. Our car sold on 30 bids. So a couple of interesting numbers there, JP. Essentially, and I won't get into too much detail because I don't want to, mess with it too much. But Hagerty helped make up a teeny bit of the difference to achieve the essentially the reserve for the seller, but everybody wins. The Hagerty sells a car, Michael Deeb sells a car, the seller sells his car, and the buyer got the car for a very decent price. This was kind of a win-win-win. You were the low bidder. You kept your bid just under 90,000. Essentially, this what this guy paid. I mean, if you look at what he paid for the car, you were off by a Yahtzee by like a grand or two. So you're like right there. Read me the tea leaves. You know, like a lot of people thought this car would do well. I had hoped it would just trickle into the low 90,000s, but you know, some people were wondering if this car would go in the 70s. I feel like there's still a lot of car there with the low miles and the nice equipment. And 95s are really appealed to a specifically intellectual air-cooled buyer. Help me read the result here, JP. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if this car were on BAT, it probably would have brought a little bit more, despite my partner's excellent job listing it and getting it out there. I think Hagerty is still struggling to bring the big money, but I think this car definitely answers the question, you know, are sellers being reasonable with their reserves? And the answer is clearly yes here, because even though I was the lower bidder between myself and Wade, I mean, look, we're still seeing 993s, really clean, low mileage ones, getting near or above 100 on BAT. I was about to say other platforms, but that's just not the case on Cars and Bids or PCAR Market. But BAT is still potentially bringing more money. But look, we're also seeing really weird misses on BAT. I think there's everyone's going to BAT. There's a lot of traffic there, and there's so many cars. There's a lot of competition for the eyeballs. I think one of the benefits that Hagerty has is that because they're still kind of the new platform on the block, cars, quality listings get all the traffic. They're not competing against a ton of other listings, and you know, there's not 6 other 993s for sale on the same darn day. This particular car, I think, was very well bought. I think the seller was very reasonable. I'm glad that everyone's happy. Would like to have seen more money in the seller's pocket, but hey, the fact is he got this car down the road. We both know that he already got something else to replace it with, so he's happy. Yep. Everyone's happy. This is the result you want. This is what happens when you have sellers and platforms being reasonable. Can you imagine that? Reasonable? What is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. So yeah, because could it have gotten more? I still think so, but I don't think that much, and I don't think it would have been worth the hassle and time and effort if he had tried to list this car at himself. If he had gone at BAT or Hagerty at the same time, he'd still be waiting another month before this car would even be live. But now he's got his money. He's got a return on his investment for better or worse. And he's, you know, he's mobile again. So, you know, financially mobile at least. So gotta love
15,
that. Yep.
15,000 views, 30 bids. I mean, the car got good action. I would not disagree with the idea that this car might have brought a few dollars more on the retail end, on the platform that just gets, you know, the biggest auction platform in the world if he had gone over to BAT. But he did not want to have to deal with the peanut gallery in the comments. And I think that's sort of the service you pay for when you hire me or one of my associates at Hagerty. And I'm happy to do that. Like that's my job. And so I think it worked out very well for him that he could be very hands off. Somebody else took care of it. Some of the questions I had to bring to him, he was like, he's like, you're a better man than me. I would have started cursing immediately, you know? So it wound up being a really good partnership for us. And to answer your question, JP, yeah, he did have a very realistic, number in mind that we could work with. For sake of argument, if this customer had come to me and wanted a reserve in that would have begin with a 9, it's like, geez, I don't know, you know, that it's like it starts to get unrealistic. But you're right on with your opening question. He was very realistic and such that we succeeded with the best that I could do and got the car sold. So I'm happy for everybody. Congratulations and thank you to him for entrusting me and us with the car. And to some of our members of the herd that bid on the car, I love you guys. Thank you for participating. The car has found a really good home. So there you go.
How cool would that have been if someone from the nerd herd bought this car? We were definitely rooting for Chris on that one, but life goes on. What do you guys think of the results of this beautiful 993 that was listed and sold on Hagerty Marketplace by my partner, Michael Deeb, right over there. If you are looking to sell your classic car, he can do the same for you. Look, Hagerty doesn't pay this channel. I'm just supporting my partner, and he always does a great job. Hey, look, I have a question for you, Michael Deeb. It's funny that the seller, I won't say his name, but he's saying, I would have started swearing. I'm with you. Look, I look at the way you respond to the people who are asking questions, and I don't know if I'm not going to say I have a bone to pick, because it's not a gripe. You are diplomatic to the point where I'm wondering if it's, this sounds bad. Is it like, it's almost disingenuous. Like, people ask really stupid questions, and you always start your answer with, thank you for the dumbass, stupid question. Of course, you don't say the dumbass question, but you always say, thank you very much for the question. And it reminds me of, like when some a-hole is sitting there in a congressional hearing, being grilled by a senator, and he's looking up, because they always sit the people way low, and the senators are always up on these high chairs. And you always get these terrible bureaucrats that are obviously avoiding direct questions. They know that if they eat up enough time, they can avoid actually answering the question. So they always say, thank you very much for the opportunity to answer this question, Senator so-and-so. In reviewing your question, which was a very, very, very good question, and I might add is a great question, sir. We're out of time. We're going to go on to the next one. They get out of asking. Yeah. What is with this super over diplomatic answer?
I'll give you a very intimate answer, and it's going to make you and some of the Vegas crew laugh out of your shorts. So I am not a college-educated man. Anytime somebody asks me a question, I want to flaunt whatever I know to try and sound intellectual and sophisticated. So if you ask a question and I have something I can answer to that, I want to give you every piece of information as possible. And so I'm very technical with my answers. But what you see today on Hagerty is a result of an auction that you helped produce the assets for. When our buddy, our beloved uncle Solomon Braun, decided to sell his Cayman GT4, he wrote a masterclass on how to deal with questions on Bring a Trailer. And if you can't tell the difference of the before and after of that platform and Michael Deeb's presence on an auction platform, you're just not paying attention. What I learned from watching Solomon thank people and acknowledge their question, answer the question, and then thank them again and re-acknowledge them for answering the question, I have been mimicking Solomon Braun on my own platform, on all the cars that I list. So instead of just going to, I know all this stuff about Porsches or Jaguars or whatever the hell that we're talking about, I open with a thank you, and then I get into the meat of their answer, and it has served me well. JP, I have been batting 1,000. I have sold every car I have listed on Hagerty Marketplace. I forgot where I worked. Hagerty Marketplace online auction. And I when I see him, I will kiss the ring again and beg for forgiveness, because I didn't believe in him on that auction platform. And I wound up learning a lot about how to watch a master at work and never underestimate the power of niceness, and that incredible result he got from being the nice guy in the room. It absolutely changed how I behave with the public. So that's the long but very intimate answer. It's real.
And there you go. There's the answer. That's the kind of answer you're gonna get. Long, pandering.
Yeah, long. Yeah.
Look, if it wasn't so effective, if it didn't work, you're batting 1,000. I'd be giving you a lot more ish, but kudos to my partner. Good job. Yeah. All right, guys.
That's my TED Talk.
Get professional help, I think, is generally what the advice that we're giving you. And we always tell you, never listen to our advice. Okay, we've got another car to see if we can answer the question, do sellers... are they finally getting the reality check and they're finally coming to Jesus here? Before we answer that question, I want to shout out to all the new people in the Nerd Herd. I don't know exactly who's new here tonight, but it seems like, as always, the Nerd Herd is doing a great job at welcoming everyone. So if you are new... No, he was here last week. So Deeb, you don't get to say, because you always screw up. You talk about people that have been there a while. So you're good at answering questions on the auction platform, but not welcoming Nerd Herd members. If Deeb says, hey, welcome, you're a new guy in the nerd herd. Don't worry. He just doesn't know if any of you guys are new or not. It's all right. No, we've got a lot of new people in there, and the nerd herd's doing a great job welcoming everyone. If you are new, if you're watching the show live right now and you're not in the live chat, get in there, play along. Great people hanging out in there, and you guys are really why we do this. It's a lot of fun seeing you guys interacting with us, and it really makes it a lot more fun. All right, let's get to this last car on the list, and then we've got some new predictions. I'm really itching to get the new predictions. So let's go over the results of this last one really quick to see if buyers finally getting real here. What do we got?
Yeah. All right, JP. So let's circle right back to the 1998 Ferrari 550 Maranello that was on PCAR Market. Our car was listed out of Monterey, California, showing about 35,000 miles. And of course, this one had the 6-speed manual transmission. What's interesting, JP, is this auction closed on Monday. And first of all, let's get to our bids. The car needs belt service, and the car had a little bit of a ding on the Carfax. And so we wondered why this car was on PCAR Market, and we thought that he might be trying to protect either a high reserve or just, something of that nature. With that in mind, JP, I gave a bid of $99,800, and I didn't think it would sell for that number. I thought it would wind up in the deal shank for something close to $150. You agreed that you didn't think it would sell, gave me a lower bid of $90,000. We're about $10,000 apart. And then Wade Bennett from Tech Daily joined us on the last show in studio, in the Rami studio. He split the difference between us, JP, at $94,000. I never thought Wade was that diplomatic, but that was impressive. John, it gets very interesting because everything on PCAR Market is never as it seems. Our car hammered for $115,511 on 18 bids. And then I watched it for like 16 hours. It said that it was processing. And the next day, it was still processing. And then a few hours later, they posted a 19th bid of $120,000 where it sold. But this is where it gets interesting. Normally, when they get a final bid and the hammer goes, they go and try and strike a deal. And if they get another offer, then they show it in a different colored box in the like on their thread. But in this instance, the $115,000 bid and the $120,000 bid were the same person. And so they counted the 120 as a 19th bid, but they went against their own typical protocol for how they tally their bids. That 120 wasn't a bid because it didn't come before hammer. That was an offer. But they wanted everybody to think they sold it in the natural auction, so they listed it the next day as the 19th bid. But that's not how it works. So I'm just calling out PCAR Market for moving the goalpost to make it look like they did their job within a timely manner. But that's not what happened. So our car actually hammered for $115,000 on 18 bids where it didn't sell. They struck a deal about 24 hours later and sold it to the same guy. But JP, I was still the high bidder in both accounts. But man, PCAR Market just, they can't do the same thing. You cannot trust them to be the same platform from 1 hour to the next. Like they, just learning and over the years how they do it. When they get an offer post hammer, it's an offer, and they list it as an offer, highest offer. And if they get two offers, they'll list two offers. And they removed the bid count, but the bid count stayed, and they're trying to pretend they sold it at hammer, and they didn't. They struck a post hammer deal. So JP, I hand it back over to you. If you have any thoughts on why, or am I missing something? What's the benefit? Like, are they just trying to look
it's cool? Like clutching, what is it? Clutching a loss from a win out of the hands of a win. It's like, guys, you did it. You sold the car. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Why the unforced errors? That is the rule at PCAR Market. All this silliness, this is one of those situations where, we have to give it to PCAR Market. They did it right. They got the car sold. Look, what's really important here, that goes back to the original question is, are sellers finally getting a reality check here? Are they finally getting reasonable and getting real with their reserves? And PCAR Market has always been the most egregiously not real when it comes to reserves, right? They're the ones like, yeah, whatever. You want $10 million for a $4,000 car? Sure, let's try it. We'll get opportunity to sell the car, right? I mean, look, this is how the system should work. You get a seller that's not crazy. You list their car. You get people to bid on it, and unlike some of the other auction platforms, they have a mechanism where they can sell the car later. But then they screw with they're trying to juke their numbers. It's like, guys, just take the win for crying out loud. Even in a win, they can't get it right. It's just so PCAR Market. What a mess.
Randy B says in the chat, let me see, carry the 0 and multiply by 0. Like, exactly. Totally. So JP, one last question on this. At $120,000, I kind of feel like that's all the money. I think that's a retail number for a car that's at a minor, like, probably a little repaint on a fender from some cocktail damage, and the car needs belts. Peter George kind of mansplained to us when we covered this car a few days ago. You don't have to drop the motor on a 550. They can put the belts in. So that could be a sub $10,000 service. So let's say this guy gets it transported, pays the tax, and puts the belts in. He's in at 135, 140 grand. I think with a fresh service and fair miles, that's I think he bought it right. Like, I'm not mad at that number. I didn't think it would happen on PCAR, but like you said, they did. Despite the unforced error, they still did it right. Do you think he overpaid, or you like that number? You okay with that number?
I'm okay with that number. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to, some of the folks in the Nerd Herd. We got Ralph saying, hey, PCAR actually gives you a person on the phone. BAT just sends you emails. And
that's true.
Okay, but what they're giving you a salesperson that's going to grind you on the phone. So is that better or worse? I mean, Cars and Bids was kind of known for having the better customer service, even though they weren't having people call you, but they just got rid of all their customer service people. They had a massive a reduction in workforce there.
Personnel.
Personnel. So it's, now they have some of the worst customer service. At least that's the rumor have it. I haven't, had an interaction directly with them since that rip. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you rather have just interact with a platform via email, or would you rather have a salesperson whose job it is to grind on you and the buyers? Are you okay with that? Some people are okay with that, and I get that. That's fine. Look, you've got an advocate, but I think the problem is that the advocate isn't necessarily in your corner. They're always decidedly in their own corner. It'd be one thing if if their salespeople only got paid, if I don't know, they got the number that you wanted, but instead their job is to go out there and grind you, the seller, and grind the buyers out there. And I think that's where a lot of people are just like, this is a little too much used car experience. But I don't know, let us know what your guys' experience has been with PCAR Market. Are you okay with them? I don't know, let us know in the comments below. All right, that wraps up our predictions from the last episode. I think it's some pretty interesting indications that sellers are actually getting real out there. And let's face it, it's not the end of the world. If you look at our thumbnails, we're always like fire and brimstone, but that's what we got to do to get people to click on the stuff. We're a new channel and we're trying to get new viewers, and it's working. But really, we don't think the sky is falling. Well, there is a correction. Things are softening, but things are selling out there if you are a seller who is reasonable. If you have checked reality, you're going to probably be able to sell your car. All right, we are going to be right back with 3 new predictions right after this. Stick around. It's only a minute. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, we are back and we've got predictions. Gonna be, this is gonna be really interesting to see if sellers have had a reality check. Let's go ahead and make some predictions. What's the first car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, our buddy Zach Miller has submitted for us this 2022 2,000-mile BMW M5 CS that is currently on Sothebys Marketplace. The car is listed out of Bartonville, Texas, and the seller is listed as Patrick A. And I'm trying to see if Zach will chime in the chats and let us know if Patrick might be the owner and Zach is actually selling it for him, or if Zach just picked the car because he liked the car. I know Zach has been trying to find cars on his own to bring to Sotheby's Marketplace, and so as he submitted this car, I had to wonder if it was his. Our car is in the color Brands Hatch Gray and has sort of these gold wheels and gold calipers. JP, I'm going to have to say, as gaudy as it is, I kind of dig the colorway, and I don't know why, but it looks really cool. It feels like the press car was this like frozen dark green metallic with the gold wheels, and I thought that was just a little young, a little nouveau riche, but this is a little bit elegant, but it's got, I don't know, some bold Versace something. I don't know. I dig it. These cars, by all accounts, are absolute rocket ships. I remember when these cars came out, they were a really big deal. They're super expensive. I think they're in the $200,000 range if you were lucky enough to be able to get one. And certainly when the cars hit the floor, a lot of people were speculating them and they were trading. But in the last 12 months, JP, not a lot of these cars have traded hands. There's very few comps to give us an indication of what they're worth with unreasonably low miles in the secondary market. So it'll be very interesting when it comes time for you and I to guess, bid on this car, because it's anyone's guess as to what a 2,000 mile M5 CS will bring in the summer of 2024. They're already dropping information on what the specification of the new M5 is going to be. And by all accounts, BMW has raised the bar that they had previously set with this car. So the next one promises to be, to the 11th degree. Who's going to line up and pay retail for one that was at the 10th degree? So here we are, JP. Do you like the colorway? Do you like these cars? Typically the flagship luxury sedans fall off a cliff. But the CS versions that had a little more power and a little better suspension tuning, a little more carbon fiber, and a little more exclusivity held their value really well. Are we going to see now 2 years later and the new one on the horizon that these are finally going to fall off a cliff? What do you think?
It's tough for me to have an opinion on this car because to me, honestly, it's invisible. I just don't even, I know it's fantastic. The people have them, love them. Our very good friend Jeff Chu has one. And I know people were paying through the nose for these cars when they came out. But to me, I just don't get it, man. I would way rather have an E39 M5 than this car. I don't, this is the type of car that if I want it, at the casino down the street or something like that, I'd just be like, whatever, here's the key, just give me a check. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's fast. I'm sure it's luxurious, but I just driving down the street, I can't tell the difference between this and a 324 or I don't even know that I've just lost all interest in BMW. They have completely lost the plot. Their design sensibilities, design language is just ridiculous. At least this doesn't have quite as big nostrils as some of the BMWs do. Sorry guys, I just can't care about this car at all. But it is going to be interesting to see what happens with the result on this one. It's a weird platform that's, look, Hagerty is still struggling to get out there. This platform is really new and hardly anybody knows that it's out there. So is this the kind of car that's good for a new platform or I don't know. This car just, to me, feels like it should be on, I don't know, Auto Trader or something like that. What's it going to bring?
All right, JP. So Zach Miller is in fact representing the car, and then the guy Patrick, who's listed as a seller, is Zach's client. And Zach likes the F90 and thinks that this, as the ultimate M5 of the last few years, is going.
Sorry, Zach, nothing personal. I want you to get all the money for the car. I just
looked upon favorably down the road, and that might be the case. Like the same way we look on the E39. 10, 15, 20 years will we look back on the F90 CS as, a high water mark for the brand and the model at that time. And so Zach kind of does. I think I'm paraphrasing for Zach, but I think I'm picking up what he's dropping. JP, that being said, I just think that with the new one essentially dropping any day now here, The specs are being leaked to the press. I think this car is going to soften up. I think if this guy wanted to bring this car to market, 2 quarters ago or last summer, he might have got, 10-15% more for the car, but I think it's going to soften up just a little bit. Our car is currently sitting at $120,000. And that is on, I got to read the platform again, JP. It used to have a bid count, 33 bids. So very good action. It closes tomorrow. John, I think it's going to fail to reach 150. I think it's going to peter off at $145,005. Now, again, the car only has like 2,100 miles. If the car had delivery miles, I would think that'd be a different story. I think then it's wrapped in shrink wrap. You load it onto a truck, you put it into a museum or a garage or whatever you call it, and then it's a collector car for all of time because it's got no miles on it. But this car's been driven; it's got 2,000 miles, and I think that he's going to pay for that. And so I don't think this is going to bring 170 or 180 if it did with no miles. So 145, $5, and that's my bid to you, JP. Over or under 145?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 144 just to be under here. I just don't know how excited people are gonna be on this car. I actually think this car would do better on Cars and Bits. I think the person that wants this is probably there. I think a car like this probably gets a little lost on BAT, but still going to do better on BAT than this platform. It's going to be tough for this platform to make it happen. Look, is this thing a future classic? No, I don't think it is. If you look at an old E39 M5, they have 3 pedals. These cars don't have 3 pedals. These cars are full of electronic gizmos. They have screens everywhere. I don't think anything with this many screens has the potential to be a future classic, because when you look at okay, I'll use the E39, right? I mean, that is a car where tech was just starting to hit the world, right? And you got the silly nav systems and stuff like that, and you can't talk on your phone with the computer that's there or whatever. But you buy that car, you don't really care because it's got 3 pedals, and you don't really expect the tech to work at all. Cars like this, all these modern cars with screens for dashboards and screens on the dashboard and screens on the seat and screens all over your head and screens freaking everywhere. That's all just stuff that's going to look old and out of date. And unless there's going to be a way to update the software on those things as things come, as new tech comes out, is this stuff going to be scalable? I just don't see BMW being the kind of company that's like, let's increase the value of the older cars so that people hold on to them longer. This is the company, after all, that was charging people subscription fees to use the heated seats in the car. The seats are heated, but unless you pay a monthly fee to BMW, they were not letting you use the heated seats that you paid for. That kind of stuff, that's one of the many, many things that just makes me say, I will never consider BMW, a modern BMW, ever again.
Yeah. It's so weird because it's like the antithesis of the communist philosophy, so everybody gets heated seats. Yeah, but anyway, right. JP, I've got a funny one for you. Zach Miller, who instead of recusing himself from bidding on his listing, has thrown a bid out of $135,000, which is a solid 10 grand under the bid nerds. Zach, did you not look at the market? There was a car that sold on BAT just the other day with 8,000 miles that went for 142,000, which is sort of the only thing, my only lighthouse for trying to figure out a bid of 145 for a 2,000 mile example. In this case, 25% of the miles of the last one that sold, and yet Zach is going 135. I guess Zach is betting against the platform and not the presentation. So there you go, JP. I mean, wow, lots to unpack there, Zach. Thank you.
Well, I mean, look, we will just take credit if it gets up above his bid, and he can just go to his client and go, well, look, I got these guys on the bid nerds to cover the car, and that brought all the extra money.
Yeah, Mojo.
One of the hosts really loved the car. Oh, sorry, I really feel bad, Zach. No, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with the car. If you're into this looks like a great one. If you want one of these, get this one. This looks like a perfect car to get out there and get in and get this experience if that's what you actually want. It's just not, it's not my cup of tea. All right, what do you guys think this M5 will bring on the Sothbys auction platform? Will our friend Zach Miller be able to bring it home for his client? Do you think they have reasonable expectations? Let us know in the comments, and we've got some more cars to see if we can answer the question if sellers are getting real out there. What do we got next?
All right, JP, I selected a car that I just, sometimes you see a color and it just kind of haunts you. This is a one owner, 28,000 mile, 1988 Porsche 928 S4 with a 5-speed manual on PCAR Market. And our car is in cassis red metallic. John, you and I have been doing the show for 4 years. You may or may not remember a story. I lived a half block from my school, but my school was on the edge of a big property that was a mall with like shops, and there was like a hospital there and a few other little things. So there was a dentist that had a 911 SC in cassis red with a burgundy interior, convertible, and he had the vanity plate bite fixer. So clearly he was a dentist, but he, instead of parking his car in the mall where it might get vandalized, he parked it on my block in a nice neighborhood. And so every day walking to school as an adolescent, I would pass this cassis Porsche, and I fell in love with the color. I was like, this thing is like, the more I looked at it, I was like, pink, ew. And then I was like, that car is the best looking car I've ever seen in my life. So here we have a 928 S4 from basically a similar era. And this car just gets me going. The low miles are going to drive it here. The color are going to drive it here. It's got the 32 valve head on this car. So we're talking 315 horsepower and 315 pound-foot of torque. This thing has the grunt to get in and out of its own way. I dig this car, and 928s have been bringing money, JP. So despite being on, sort of the lesser platform, I think this car actually stands to do really well here. The question is, the question we'll have to ask as we look at this and wait for the result is the question you opened the show with. Is this buyer who decided to bring his car to PCAR Market, is he getting realistic with what the value and the reserve should be? Or did he deliberately go to PCAR Market because he wanted to hide this car behind a high reserve? And PCAR Market is not going to argue that. So, John, I send it to you. Any love for a pink Porsche? And what do you think of the 928? We don't talk about these cars a ton. And off the top of my head, I can't say if I know that JP loves these cars or doesn't love these cars. Like, if this was double black, would you be jonesing for it?
I'm jonesing for it in pink, man. I mean, cassis.
All right.
This thing is... Quick story, back in my much, much younger days, I think I was like 18 or 19 or whatever, I dropped out of art school and I went to move back in with my parents for a little while and got a job at a lumber mill out in the middle of nowhere. And I worked a job called the green chain. As logs went into the lumber mill and they would make it into different types of boards, they would come out of the factory on this conveyor belt that was basically made of chains. It was like these huge chains. It was like this elevated platform, and the wood, the planks would come out, and you would be assigned to 4x4s or 2x4s or 2x8s or whatever. Your job was to grab a specific board off the chain and drop it into a stack and then bail them up, and then a forklift would come and pick them up. It was crazy hard job.
Dangerous.
People got hurt all the time. Yeah, broken limbs and fingers and toes and just constantly up. Gary's gone for a couple of weeks because he broke 15 bones or whatever. So it was just the hardest job I've ever probably had. Just manual labor and meat. Not a big fan, but I did the job. I was doing what I had to do. Saving up some money. And, so anyways, that was the thing about that, where it was in Washington State. It was in a place called Oso, if anybody knows where that is in Washington State. It was at the foot of the Cascade Mountains on the way out to Highway 20, which is one of the best driving roads in the Northwest or anywhere for that matter. And I remember one day doing my job and I look over and I hear that unmistakable sound of a flat six. It wasn't one of these. This was probably in, I guess it must have been 1990, 91 or whatever, but it was a 964 convertible. Everybody knows I like convertibles, in cassis red, and it just ripped by. And I'm just like, okay, I would way rather be that guy than this guy right now. This really sucks. That guy is living it, and maybe that's why I love convertibles so much. But I remember seeing that color and everybody else going, was that a pink Porsche? I'm like, fuck yeah, it was a pink Porsche, and I want that. What's that?
How rare is a 964 cab in Cassis? I mean, that's got to be like a one of three.
This was in period, right? This was so that car had to have been brand new.
Brand new, yeah. Oh,
that color stuck with me ever since. So yeah, do I like this 928? Do I like 928s? Answer is hell yeah. How do you not love a 928 with a stick shift? These are absolutely so much fun, and you just don't see them clean because so many of them got beat to hell. They were cheap for so long. These were not loved cars, kind of like the 964s for so long. They were relegated as just kind of a beater Porsche, a poor man's Porsche. A lot of these did not get preserved. It's great to see this one with fairly low miles in excellent condition. I think even PCAR Market is going to be able to sell this car. Like you said, Deeb, does the seller have reasonable expectations? What do you think it's going to bring? Can PCAR get this one done?
So a dealer is representing this car, and JP, this brings me to another thing, and I'm not here to bash somebody that is doing the best they can, but the dealer is Kip Schuard Motorsports, and the person who's speaking for that company in the comments as the seller is illiterate. Like they're not writing correct English. There's no spell check, and there's a lot of clerical errors in the spelling of words. It's like they're speaking phonetically and writing things the way they think they should be sold. So it's if you have a minute, you should take a look at the comments because it is mildly amusing and somehow sort of sad at the same time. But JP, help me out with this because I have a suspicion, and I want to say I'm like 85% sure, but these are timing belt cars, right? Like you have to change the timing belt on these cars. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, it's basically two 944 engines bolted together.
Thank you. There you go. That's a very crude but probably accurate analogy. So there is no mention. Yeah, there's no mention of when the timing belts were last done, and I think that's an important issue here. There's a lot of questions about, does the AC blow cold, and can you show a video of the car going forwards and backwards in reverse in first gear? So the guy on the showroom floor does just that, but there's no driving video. And I just start to wonder if they're not driving it because they know the belts need to be done. According to the Carfax, this car has only driven like a couple thousand miles over the last 20 or 30 years. And it's got low miles to begin with. So I feel like this car has sat a long time, and it could be a bit of a mechanical project to go and refresh everything throughout this car before you get to enjoy it. That being said, a low mileage Cassis S4 with a manual is still going to bring a pretty penny, even if it needs a major service, including timing belt. John, despite this car being on PCAR Market, despite this car being represented by a dealer that really can't write, he writes so poorly he shouldn't be advocating for the car or the selling dealership. I just think that this car is too rare and too attractive, and that somebody's going to pay through the nose. I think they're going to fight over this one. John, our car is sitting at $35,928 on 11 bids. It closes 17 hours from now, so basically closes tomorrow. JP, I'm going to give you all the money. Like, again, I think this car's going to hit 70 grand and sell in the natural auction. I don't even think PCAR Market could interrupt what is likely to happen because of the rarity and in my opinion, the appeal of such an unusual car. The miles and the color are absolutely going to drive the price here. I think it's going to happen. I'm going to go 70 grand and say even PCAR Market can't mess this one up. I'll eat those words, but whatever. It's fun to say. I like hope.
I don't see you being really wrong here, especially with that. When it comes to service, yeah, this car's probably going to need a lot of service. Everyone in the comments are like, yeah, that belt's like 1.5 miles long. Someone mentioned in there, too, that you need to do the water pump. This thing might need a clutch at this point from sitting around. A lot of times all the oil gets to the bottom. And so it's just, look, 928s, it's very, very, very hard to find anyone that will work on one of these anymore. Right. I know of shops here in Las Vegas that won't even do it. I know some shops that will, but they charge more per hour for a 928 than they will a 911. Keep in mind, with a shop that works on Porsches, they can put a 911 up on a lift, they can drop the engine out, put the engine on a little cart and roll it off to another place in the shop, bring the car back down and dolly the car outside where it can wait until the engine's done and that lift can be open for another job. A 928, if it needs engine out service, the engine and the transmission have to come out and then the car is immobile. It has to stay on that lift, which ties up the lift, which means that's an unutilized utility in the shop. They can't make more money on it while they're waiting for parts or whatever, and getting parts for one of these. Holy crap, talk about difficult, right? Bosch isn't making stuff. I mean, know that if this is going to be a car that you're going to buy, if you think this is the classic car that you're going to be like, oh, it's got low miles, it's fairly modern, I can drive it around pretty regularly, maybe I can make it my pretty much only car or drive it most of the time. Now, be advised that if this car ever goes to the shop, it's staying there for a very long time, even if it's just for that water pump or a clutch or a basic job. It's not getting in and out very quickly, and when it's time to go pick it up, the check is going to be very, 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 very big that you're going to have to write. So just be advised. But all that said, there's still wonderful cars when they are working. When this thing is buttoned up, it's going to be spectacular. If you've ever had the chance to drive a clean, well-sorted 928, it really will surprise you. For me, the longest time in my life, up until really just 5 or 6 years ago when Godden had one, Deeb, and you brought it over, I'd driven probably dozens of 928s in my life, but they were all pretty terrible because they were all old, beat-up, used ones. The one that you brought over that had like 8,000 miles on it and was sorted out was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. No wonder people love them. So what was your number? 70 what? 75?
70 even. 70,000
even. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go dip a little under you and go 65, 928 and say it doesn't sell there. I think the seller is going to have high expectations. This is a dealer. They have seen on all the different websites and YouTube channels that Porsches are worth $10 billion, and that's what they think this one's worth because it's a rare color. In a lot of ways, they might be right, but I think people are going to be scared if that service information is not there. I don't see how they get the big money for it. 65 even seems kind of high to me, but great car. And I think someone that gets this car, hopefully it's someone that gets it, loves it, fixes it up, gets the service up to date, and drives it. What do you think this thing will bring? Let us know in the comments. Looks like everyone is well under us in the 50s here.
Yeah.
40s and 50s. We'll see. I mean, Kevin's up there in the 65 range, but we'll see. And
Peter George is at 68, and Scott Dickerson is at 68, 928. So there's a few guys in our neighborhood, JP. So we'll see. Somebody's going to be right.
Yeah, Gary Lee, local PCA. He says more like dealing with a Ferrari than a Porsche. Really,
that's not a bad analogy at all.
Yeah, if you buy this car, just make sure you have at least $20,000 on the side to update all that service, because that's no joke, minimum. This thing could cost way more than that if there's issues. But anyways, good luck to the seller on that one, and PCAR Market. Let us know what you think this thing will bring and let's see if we can answer the question. Are sellers finally having a reality check? What's the next car on the list?
All right, JP, I couldn't help myself. I know the last two Testarossas I've petitioned, you've shot down, but I got one you're going to have to sit back and enjoy. Check this out, JP, a 1987 Ferrari Testarossa that is a Straman convertible from In Period. JP, our car is on Bring a Trailer out of Fort Royal, Virginia, showing just 13,000 miles. This guy has owned this car for 26 years. Well, now that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Because this car sold, is it the same car? Yeah, Fort Royal. I'm guessing, this is what I'm thinking happened. And please forgive me because I didn't read it. I'm guessing that this guy sold this car last year on September 26th of 2023. He sold the car for $321,260. Showing the exact same mileage, same VIN, and same assets out of the same Fort Royal, Virginia. I'm guessing he didn't get paid for the car, and so now he's listing the car for a second time. And that's kind of a bummer because let me tell you right now, $321,000 was all the money for this car. I looked, and there are just a couple of actual Straman comps that I could find, and they were nowhere near the number he allegedly got for the car last year. So super cool car. The Testarossa was never made in a convertible. A guy, I think Straman was in Southern California, JP, and he made probably a handful of these cars, but the ones he made seemed to always be like all over DuPont Registry and the Robb Report. I mean, this was just, you had to be what was considered a multimillionaire to be lucky enough to own a Ferrari Testarossa. But then if you had the money to go spend another $100,000 on it to have somebody, chop the roof off of it, you were like balling out of control. And I have to say, JP, something about those very swoopy lines on the top of the cheese grater that go and integrate themselves into the rear fender well really lend themselves to the romance of this car as a convertible. So as much as I love a Testarossa, if you offered me a convertible, I would step right over you to get the keys for this thing and be the first one to drive it. I would love to be cruising down the boulevard in this car. I think it's so cool, so 80s. It's so the gluttonous of the time from when I was in high school. JP, talk about Radwood royalty. So I serve it up to you. John, I don't know that I could tell you I've ever seen one in person, but as soon as I saw the picture, I knew it was a Straman convertible. What does that tell you? They've got to be, by the numbers, rarer than rare. What do you think of this car? You love convertibles. Is this like, if this thing were black, would it be your absolute wet fantasy? Is this your Kelly LeBrock moment? Talk to me.
I prefer it in red because everyone in the comments are talking about the same thing I was thinking immediately when we saw Outrun video game. I mean, talk about tonight is just memory lane here, going before the Boy Scouts, going down to the 7-Eleven, dropping some corners, playing Outrun before you got to go to the soccer practice or something. I know the cabriophobes they're hardcore, and you're just an idiot if you don't love the way this thing looks, man. They should have made these. Why didn't Ferrari make this car in a convertible? Everyone's going to say, that is too rigid as a whatever. If you've ever driven a Testarossa, they're not really that great from a handling point of view. They're very big. They have a huge footprint, and they're kind of heavy, and they just feel weird. They're so awesome to drive, and I've never really had the opportunity to drive one in anger, but I have driven one around. It's like, this would be difficult on like an Angeles Crest or something where you got to do really tight, difficult corners. But if you're on some beautiful swoopy highway down the coast with your best girl, I mean, that was the thing with Outrun. You're sitting there, it's got the blonde hair flying out of it. It's like, that's what a 12-year-old wants right there. That's it, right? This big wide ass on the car. I mean, this is Sir Mix-a-Lot all day. Whew, love this car. Don't know what it's worth. I love the idea that if it's a convertible, that will make it worth less than a coupe. Is that possible? Is that a thing? What do you think this is worth, Deeb? What's it going to bring?
Well, JP, I feel sorry. And again, I'm speculating, but I have a suspicion that this guy didn't get paid since it's the same seller. And in the second listing, it's been owned for 26 years when it shows that it theoretically had sold on paper on the previous listing. So I think he didn't get paid, and I feel sorry for him because I don't think we're going to see a repeat of that number or anything even close to that. John, it's at $156,100, and that comes to us by way of just 3 bids. Our car doesn't close for another 2 days, but it's not getting the same action that it got last time, which was 62 bids when it ran last time. So it's running again, and it's not doing well. It's a totally different market this summer from last. And I just feel sorry for him. So JP, I wonder what's going to happen here. Initially, I put $287,512. And I don't feel good about that number. I'm just going to go to a more round number and say that, I hope that if it gets to my number, it's enough for the seller. But I'll give you $250,000 as a real bid. 3 bids and 2 days to go. It's not looking good for this guy. I have no idea where the reserve might be, but hopefully if it gets to 250, that's enough to make him happy and it sells. Because if he doesn't sell it this time, now the car and the VIN are burned, and for no reason other than a dirty, unperforming buyer, I suspect. JP, what are your thoughts and what's your bid? I'll give it to you at $250, and I kind of have a feeling where you're going to go, but I feel sorry that this guy didn't get paid for the last time because that would have been a wild number to exchange for. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah. I mean, look, BAT, it's not uncommon for the number to double on the last day. I just don't know if that's going to happen on this one. You're absolutely right that things have definitely calmed down in the market over there. I think this thing's going to have trouble breaking 200. And really the question is, does the seller... Have they had that come to Jesus moment? Have they gotten real here? Because that's what they're going to have to get real. They got a huge number. It didn't actualize. They sat on it for a while, and they're bringing it back to market. I don't know why they would have done that and not just immediately brought it back to market, because we saw that happen a couple of times last summer. We saw results that on the second bite at the apple brought even more money, and maybe that could have happened with something like this because it is kind of special. But now... Go ahead, Deeb. What do you got?
Do you think so he's come back to market now. Do you think he should have gone out and taken fresh assets? Would that have helped his cause?
Of course. I mean, look, we always talk about that. I mean, the romance of a car like this, it's all about the romance. Nobody needs a $300,000 chopped Ferrari. If you're going to drop hundreds of thousands of dollars on something like this, it's because you're one of these lame 50-year-olds that loved it when you were a kid, and this is the dream car, and you can't just go down to the dream car factory and just buy one of these, right? You have to. These do not come up for sale very often. So there are people out there that want this, and there are people that have the money and will pay it, but you got to really make them want it, right? I mean, why wouldn't you take photos of this on the coast? Look, I would go out and recreate Outrun with a bunch of photos on something like this and really try to sell that romance. But clearly the seller didn't do that. They're kind of phoning it in the second time a year later. It's just lazy, man. It's lazy. So do I think it's going to break 200? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say $195 and say it doesn't sell. I don't think the seller is getting real on this one. I think he needs a reality check, and I'm guessing he doesn't have it. I hope the car goes for more. I want to see this car go for more, but look, above 200 is really hard right now unless it's something really special. And I just don't see this car as being special to enough people. I think it is special, but it's not special en masse. And look, you're more of a Ferrari guy than I am. You know Ferrari buyers way better than I do. Do Ferrari buyers look at something like this with disdain like they do, like a lot of Porsche guys do? If you look, our friends at Godden Porsche, Godden Classic of Las Vegas, they just restored for the restoration challenge a 1986 wide body 911 that some idiot chopped the Targa off and made it a convertible for 30 years, and Godden finally made it back to a Targa. Our big, when we were talking about it at the dealership for making the film for it, it's like someone had a unicorn chop the horn off to make a horse. It's like, what are you doing? What the hell? You made a 1 of 7 car into a 1 of a couple hundred. Anyways, yeah. So the question to you, Deeb, is do Ferrari people love this or hate this?
I think they would love this again because this was, Ferrari was enjoying, an exclusivity in the 80s where, even fewer people could afford them than they can today. And so, this was rarer than that. So I think most Ferrari guys would really appreciate this for being a footnote in Ferrari's history at a time when they were just so completely out of reach to the average person in America. The late 80s and Reaganomics and all that and high interest rates, that was a tough time to be shopping for Ferraris. Yeah. And so if you could afford one and you could afford to go take it, send it to Beverly Hills and get the roof ripped off and make it, unobtainium. Yeah, I think most Ferrari guys would appreciate this. I do. And I was never really a massive Testarossa fan, but that thing's cool.
Well, what do you guys think this Testarossa with the top chopped off, is it going to bring the big money? Is it going to bring as much money as it did last time, or is this seller really going to need that reality check with a reasonable reserve? Do you think the seller is there? Do you think they've had that come to Jesus moment? Let us know in the comments below. And shout out to the Nerd Herd tonight, man. You guys are doing a great job. Lots going on in a conversation over there. I always say it on the show, I'd rather be hanging out with you guys in there than doing the show because it looks like you guys are having more fun than us. Lots of great information in there. Again, for those of you who are new to the Nerd Herd tonight, thanks so much for joining us and being part of the conversation. We hope that you continue to come back, twice a week with us on Sundays and Wednesday nights. And Michael Deeb, that's a show. Shout out. I want to give a shout out to let's see here. What do you call it? Vegas Auto Fest. September 21st is coming up. big announcement. We got F1 as a sponsor for Vegas Auto Fest this year. That's unofficial. I can't put it out there. I really shouldn't be saying that. But look, you can win tickets to F1 this year. They're going to have F1 cars out there. It's going to be so awesome. We were really stoked to have them as partners this year. And lots of other cool stuff too. And by the way, we are giving away another car. We're going to try to give away a brand new 2024 Lotus Emira that I got to drive for a whole day. Took my wife out for her anniversary. It was awesome. All right, Michael Deeb, what do you got before we get out of here?
Let's see. We'll do the show on Sunday, and then next week I'm going to go up the mountains. So Wednesday I'm going to bring the puck, JP, and try to come to us live off the back deck up in Whispering Pines to do the show, which will be really fun. I'll be what do you call it? A lumber sexual out on the back deck with a Pendleton or something. So anyway, it should be really fun. I'll come to you live from the mountains next Wednesday. That's about it, JP.
All right, guys.
We're off to Vegas. Or not Vegas. We're off to Monterey.
Monterey in a couple weeks for Car Week at Works Reunion. Find us there. All right, guys. That's it. That's the show. Share with your friends, Bid Nerds. Spread the word. Grow the herd. See ya on the next episode. Sunday night. Bye.
Peace.
Get those words!